Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We're live. It's Goose from the Wise Wealth Discord coming at you with the Sunday watch list. Wanted to go over some of the events that were going on this week and some of the levels that we're looking at. There is quite a bit of events going on. As you can see, a lot of red folders. Core CPI on Wednesday morning, it looks like. CPI. So CPI is going to be huge. Then we have federal funds rate. They're going to be deciding, interest rate cut. Is that coming? Probably not this month, but a raise, whatever it is, they're going to decide that at the FOMC. Then we have PPI. So a lot of inflation data, couple bond auctions, 30-year, 10-year. But like we always say, the FOMC is just so big because it basically gives the stock market a reason to either rally or sell off based off some of the language that they put out there. So FOMCs are always very, very volatile. But we'll dive right into the charts. Obviously, data is always going to be a big thing throughout the week, but levels are kind of what we want to look at. Off the rip, like when I did look at the 1 hour and the 15 minute, we're starting with the SPY, the S&P 500. It kind of looks like it could try and form a head and shoulders. And with how volatile we're probably going to get this week with the red folder, it's like I could see something coming down, testing this, and pushing back up and then denied. I don't know if that's exactly how it'd play out, but I do think it's like possible that that could happen. Like coming down, I don't know if the Elliott waves are going to work. Coming down here, pushing off that, and then creating that, head and shoulders to eventually pull back. I don't know exactly how it's going to work out, but those are some of the levels that I would be looking for, especially around the 518 level. And then the closest support right now would obviously be right there. So SPY is most likely going to come down, test the 531 area, and then see what happens. We could gap up tomorrow, but futures don't really look that strong. They're just kind of hanging there. But obviously, as you can see, if you're just mounting these previous levels of resistance, it's like you're going to turn that into support very fast. So it's like things still look very bullish. The charts look bullish, but it's the data that comes out. And then I'm just saying situationally, you could see a head and shoulders here. You have the left shoulder forming the head, and then say an FOMC brings it down, but then it shoots back up the next day like it's been doing. There's a few different scenarios that it can go, but as of right now, the trend is up. And it's like I was saying last week, the trend is up. You don't want to fight it. And you look, it's like most of the week we were up. It was consolidating, and then boom, it just caught on fire. The Qs, it came down, had a little bear trap, flew right back up, and we closed at all-time highs on Friday. So it's like you can't deny the facts that we're continuing to move up, but at some point you always want to have a realization that things could sell off. You know what I mean? It could miss this line as support and finally pull back a decent pullback, 526. I'm not, trying to have the crystal ball and tell you what's going to happen, but I like to have a plan for if it does happen. So it's like like to read it and then try and react properly. So it's like if it does come down to 531, I would be looking for possible calls if it can start to create higher highs and higher lows. But then if it loses that, you possibly can get shorts to 525. Those are some of the levels I'm looking at. Q, you want to see it hold the 460 range. If it doesn't hold that, it could fall down, create the same thing, get a bounce here, get some liquidity right here at this previous resistance, and then bounce right back up. Come right down here to the 444. I would be comfortable with possibly taking calls and then, possibly head and shoulders in the longer term. Don't know. FOMC is going to be big, data is going to be big, but I just like to kind of game plan for if that does happen, then I'll react this way because it's kind of hard and impossible to, predict every single day. That was the Qs, by the way. I know I went over SPY pretty in depth. Qs 460. That's the level that it needs to hold. If it doesn't, I could see it coming down to the 444, and then we'll see what happens after that. IWM, they're in a big gap structure. It does look like they kind of got denied up here. They keep trying and trying. They're not quite there yet. It still looks like a pretty clean chart, though. Kind of like some of the action that's happening here on IWM. It's just trying to like get enough liquidity to just break out officially. But until that happens, I mean, just a nice little channel that they have going here. If they do lose that gap fill, then most likely, test the 198, 197 area. You'd like that to continue to create higher highs and higher lows, but trying to break out of this huge range that they're in for 3 to 4 years, it's going to take time, and they're trying to find buyers. But interest rates are obviously affecting them a lot because they started bouncing when they lost their 200s and stuff like that. The Dow, that was down the most last week. I do remember watching that. I was just like pretty surprised. They had a pretty down week. Um, Maybe not. It seems like they've been getting smoked a lot more than the Qs and stuff. I guess they had a decent amount of pullbacks, but overall, the charts still look good. They're still maintaining their supports. They're still, continuing to push higher. That weekly candle is breaking above. Like we have strong weekly closes above, the previous highs. So it's like that's still very bullish. It's just like the reality of like what's going to happen with the uncertainty of the economy. That's where I like to preach is like just be careful, play your levels. If things get broken in the downside, we can play that, but you can't just scream like, "Oh, everything's going to come crashing down because it's going up." No, it's like most likely the Qs are going to come to 460 and test it, and then keep going up. If that doesn't happen, then it could possibly get to 444 before it starts to go up. It's like these are levels that I'm looking to buy at, not really like short. Shorting would be like these structure breaks where it's getting back into this liquidity zone and stuff. It's like a bigger move down, but that's just not my opinion because, as Jimmy and I always agree on, most things are skewed to the upside, so you don't really want to trade too much of that. The dollar came down and tested. It seems like it's getting a good bounce off the 200. We'll see if it can actually break out. It's been in a decent downtrend for a little while. Actually, looks like it's slightly trying to break out right now. You could move it a little bit just to be gracious, but off the 200, that's not good for bulls necessarily. You got bonds bouncing off the 200 too. So it's like if they get scared out of it, we'll see. Bitcoin in the bigger time frame is in just a huge range right now. I don't really always follow the huge time frames, but with a nice swing trade or something, it's like when this does break, it's going to be big. I do believe I'm pretty bullish on Bitcoin. For a while, I was very skeptical, but I'm starting to turn around on Bitcoin, and I am starting to enjoy it and just ride the ride. You know what I mean? Not hate on it so much because I was always like, what about regulations? But now they're in Congress battling it off and like how they're going to utilize it. And structurally sound, it's just like it's going. It's starting to build its momentum. It's consolidating. And when it does pop, it's going to pop. I mean, 110, 120. I know it sounds ridiculous right now. That's almost like 100% gains, but Bitcoin has never ceased to amaze me. Ethereum, same thing, just in a nice little range, tight range too. So there's any good news that comes out with crypto is going to make that go crazy. Let me get into stocks. We have daily here on Apple. Obviously, we've been showing you how last time we had a correction, we went to all-time highs with that. They broke that downtrend, and what did it lead to on the Qs and the SPY? All-time highs. Look at the daily, all-time highs. So it's like that's why you got to continue to watch what the previous move was, and then just play based off levels, right? As you see an Apple break that, Jimmy and I are like, okay, that's it got above its 200. It's finally breaking that. Last time it broke it, we went to all-time highs. It broke it again. We're going to all-time highs. It's right up there at resistance, so it could get denied heavy this week. Who knows? Microsoft looking decent. I don't know why I have these big ass lines here. That's my apologies. It looks pretty ugly. But nice little daily chart there. I might break it down a little bit further. 15 minutes, see if I can find anything. Just a lot of chop, man. Just a lot of chop. If you see in the 15-minute and the hour and the daily, it's just sideways. Nothing big is happening. Obviously, huge support right here at the 398, 400 level. And then you have a resistance up here at their all-time highs. So it's like nothing to really play here on Microsoft, in my opinion, unless it starts inching higher and breaks through 430 level or breaks below 400. Nvidia, man, what a tank. What a juggernaut. it doesn't matter what lines you draw on this stock, it just continues to keep going. Nvidia is wild, yo. I really am impressed with what they do and how they continue to just beat earnings and continue to be a juggernaut in the space of AI, and they believed in what they were building. So that's pretty cool. The stock, I can't really say to short it or buy calls. I do think it's getting pretty overbought in the short term. But if you're looking at a long-term investment, I do still think it's a great company to continue to buy no matter what the price is, because they're probably going to continue to keep growing and continue to keep going. Tesla, they still are in this very tight range. It's been almost like a month now, May 24th to June 24th. Yeah, well, not quite June 24th, but June 11th. I was looking at 2024, but it's been close to a month, and it's just still in this inside range. So I'm waiting for the break either below 170 or but above like 180, start to push the 200 range. Tesla kind of bores me now. They don't really move like that. Meta had a great week last week. You could see on the daily they were consolidating for a while, finally broke out. If we do come back and retest and fill this gap right here to 480, I think that would be better to come back and retest after such a big break. And then you can look at calls to try and get above all-time highs at 530. If that happened, that would obviously be pretty cool. AMD, tight range, just like Tesla. We're waiting for the pop above some of these levels at like 170. See if it can continue to inch higher. I am pretty bullish on it, generally speaking. But as you can see, there is a lot of news coming up. So charts don't really mean a whole lot sometimes when those big news events happen. Google, I mean, they're just on a tear right now. That straight up is pretty ridiculous, actually. But they're staying above their 200 all moving averages. Nothing to be bearish about. If anything, there's a gap right here to 161 if you wanted to, look at short-sided things. But a lot of these stocks are still very bullish. Anything above 180 would be calls for Google. Amazon, kind of breaking out of their little range that they had going on. Just a lot of tight spaces, it seems like. But when you see these big candles start to break it, that's a good sign that it's going to go for highs and it's going to look to start breaking through these things. Volume was pretty high here on the sell side, and then it started drooping off. So that could mean something that buyers really aren't there. They're just kind of pushing it through on low volume days. Netflix, I mean, same thing. It just kind of keeps going up. It's hard to say, like, oh, these stocks got to come down to reality, because eventually they will. They'll probably get hit with, some bad news or something. But until then, until you start to see these 200 EMAs or these structures start to be broken, it's like you don't have to remain bearish and be like, oh, it's good, it's too high, it's been going up for too long. It's like just ride the wave, baby. Nvidia is just gonna save the country. They're gonna end world hunger too. Just making jokes, just making jokes. Some of the ones that I don't usually cover, Airbnb, I'm still kind of bearish on it. It is holding its 200 EMA, but it's pretty closely. So below 142 would be a nice short. I see the rising wedge that it had, and it finally broke out. So I'm just waiting to see if it can break below instead of above. If it does break above, the gap filled to 156 would probably be pretty easy. Game last week was cool, but kind of got smoked towards the end right after he had his little press conference. DG is one that I'm looking to get bullish on through the recession. So we'll see if, well, I'm saying the recession, like there's one guaranteed to come. I'm expecting a recession, but I think DG will start to perform well as consumers need cheaper options. That's just my opinion. I think it could be a good swing down here. It's been sold off pretty heavily from its all-time highs. So at some point, I think dip buyers will come in, whether it's around 100 or 125. I think in the longer term isn't really something you need to be worried about. I think if you buy it now, it wouldn't be a bad time. But I'm not a financial advisor, so don't come suing me. Coin, that was one of my favorites last week. I didn't actually end up getting in. but it's starting to finally break structure. And at some point, like we're watching Bitcoin and all of that, it's gonna explode. If Bitcoin, breaks to all-time highs, coin is gonna be at 300. I'm about positive of it. I've been kind of dabbling into some common shares a little bit to hold for a few months because I do think Bitcoin is due for a huge push, but that's just me. Maybe they do get smoked. Snapchat, they're looking good. They're trying to get into phase two. Phase one right now, just coupling, coupling, coupling. It could break above this, fill this gap. That would be a nice little swing trade. Above 18 can easily go to like $24. Be like $3, $4 every share. Be kind of nice. DraftKings, they're looking a little bit more bearish. They're below their 200. So, and they're getting denied off of it. So DraftKings could be a good place for shorts if the market starts to turn red. You don't like to see 200s being broken and these long trend lines that I'm talking about. Like Netflix, Google, they're not breaking them. They're staying above it. But this is starting to break below. So that's when you want to err on the side of caution. Boeing, they've been getting smoked a little bit because all their planes are falling apart. Shopify, they're actually breaking their trend as well. Shopify, some of these are good short names. Boeing, DraftKings. You could see weakness. Like the market's at all-time highs. You should see a lot of these, way up here, but they're breaking down. So if the market does continue to move down and sell off, you're going to want to be looking at those positions to possibly capitalize on some shorts. Not like Nvidia, that's just straight up. Don't want to short Nvidia. It sounds tempting, but I wouldn't. Arc, nice little wedge going on. I'm hoping it breaks above, but it's just Kathy Woods is a crazy motherfucker. Kathy Woods is wild, yo. I don't know why she buys and when she buys, but she's below the 200 EMA. She's getting denied at the 44 area. If she can get above 200 EMA, maybe 52 as resistance. If it breaks above that, more bullish. Breaks below this, I mean, they'll capitulate. There's no way you see it in the $15 range, but if you do, I would be buying at those levels if that ended up happening. But nothing really else to look at. Baba's been kind of coming back and trying to retest that big level we posted and the 200. So Baba's actually at a huge level. You want to see $78, $80 held, or else the bears can capitalize and get it back down to 70. But thanks for checking in, everybody. Hope everyone had a great weekend. We'll keep you updated on some of the charts throughout the week, but wanted to go through some of the things I was looking at and levels. Um, Everyone have a wonderful night. I gotta go to bed. Peace.